Hi everyone who's joining. This is the Scorecard and All-Star Biweekly Sync. Um, the meeting notes doc, I'm sharing it on the screen, and also you can find the link in the calendar invite. While you're joining, please go ahead and mark yourself as an attendee if you'd like, and then we'll get started in a minute or two as others join.
So, hi Jeff.
All right, I'll say it again for those who just joined. I'm presenting the meeting notes, and you can find the link in the calendar invite. You can pull those up, or you can just follow along and view through the present. Feel free to add yourself as an attendee if you'd like. Yeah, and seeing that it's about almost 5 after, I'll go ahead and start the agenda. So we've been trying to play with the agenda, or the kind of the format of the agenda with this meeting a little bit. So we'll have welcome, announcements, and then our main session will be all the open issues and discussions. So with that said, I believe with the welcome, we typically go over, a reminder of the mission and vision for the group. But that's actually not finalized. So that's one of our work items for today, is to keep working on our mission and vision. So I'll skip that. And we'll get on to introductions. If anybody is a new attendee to this meeting, or hasn't attended in a while, or hasn't introduced themselves yet, feel free to speak up and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I guess I can start. I'm John. I work at Coinbase as an infrastructure security engineer, and I've been incorporating OpenSSF scorecard into a lot of work I do. And recently, I went to ETH Portland conference and gave a presentation trying to promote OpenSSF scorecards for use at the hackathon. So people who are building, cryptocurrency, crypto network related projects might have some indicator of the risk they're including in their project when they're finalized with their project, and they might want to start thinking about the security concerns of what they were working on, and especially if their project is going to grow and develop and mature over time, and maybe hold assets or control assets of others or whatnot. So yeah, that was very fun.
Awesome. Thanks, John. That's really cool to hear. Getting new people into Scorecard. Welcome. Anyone else?
I am Nusrat. I am a PhD student at NC State University, and recently I'm working on a project where I especially looking into NPM and PyPy ecosystem and trying to see what Scorecard does on those packages and how many metrics are actually feasible for NPM or PyPy, stuff like that. So this is my first time joining the meeting. Nice to meet you all. Yeah.
Hey, all.
Thank you.
My name is.
Oh, Yeah, come on, go ahead, Julia.
Julia Ferrioli. I just joined Cisco and I'm catching up on the scorecard stuff. So, nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Nusret and Julia. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi all, I am Parth Kanakya. I am also from NC State University and I am working along with Nusrat on working on a research paper promoting the use of scorecards tool and trying to develop a case study about how scorecards can actually be used in real life on projects, along with collecting data for NPM and PyPy ecosystem. Along with collecting the scorecards data for all the packages across NPM and PyPy ecosystem.
Welcome, Parth. Yeah, good to have you. And I'm excited to see about the research that you all do.
Hey everybody, I'm
Anyone else?
Krob. I get the great pleasure to work with the Developer Best Practices Working Group, the Vulnerability Disclosures Working Group, the OpenSSF Technical Advisory Committee, and the Governing Board's Public Policy Committee. And I saw the invite to the mailing list, and I just wanted to poke my head in and see all the awesome stuff going on here in the Scorecard team.
Welcome. And thanks for, were you hosting? Oh, maybe I'm hosting now.
I flipped it. It auto remembers me that way, so I just changed it over to you. I have to scoot out a little bit early.
Awesome, welcome. Any other new introductions?
Yeah, I think I can go. Hi, folks. My name is Jason DeTiberis. I recently joined Cisco in the OSPO group with Stephen and Julia, and I'm here to kind of get up to speed and excited to get involved. Thank you.
Welcome, Jason. Any other new introductions? All right, well, great to see all the new faces. I think we're gonna have an exciting meeting today, talking about our mission. Also on the announcements, I just threw some things up there for like major project updates for Scorecard and All-Star. Laurent and I did a presentation this morning about how we contribute and maintain those projects. And you can click that and see that. You might have to register, and apologies for that. If you want to wait, that'll get posted to YouTube at a later date. Also, there's just as a warning of an upcoming session, Stephen and I are going to present Scorecards and All-Star at OpenSSF Day at the OpenSSF Summit, as well as we'll talk about maybe some other stuff like CII badge. And so yeah, you can see the information for that there as well. If anybody else has anything, feel free to mention that or bring that up as an announcement. Don't see any other major kind of announcement level updates on the agenda. So I think we'll go ahead and move to the meat of our meeting, the mission and vision working time. And for that, I'll hand it over to Brian.
Great. First of all, thank you all for joining. I put out a message in the chat and wanted to make sure that anybody who was interested in mission or vision writing for these projects to get involved. If you know of anyone that you think would be interested and you don't see here, I highly doubt, unless we're really efficient, that we're going to get a finalized mission and vision by the end of this meeting. But I think we'll have some additional stuff to work on. And I think if you know people that would be interested, please let them know that this is ongoing work. So just a recap of where this started. A few weeks ago, I kicked off the topic of wanting to create mission and vision statements for both Scorecards and for All-Star. These are useful in a few different contexts, but if they're done well, I think they can help people that are curious about the project really get a sense of what we're working towards. So anybody that is either joining a meeting or curious about the project, they should be able to, at a glance, get a better sense of where things are going. And then also for existing members, as we're making decisions, everything from prioritization to kind of just looking at what longer term things we would want to be investing in. I think these are both useful tools there too to point to and kind of back some of the decisions that we'd be making. So up till this point, there has been 2 separate mission and vision statements opened as GitHub issues for both Scorecard and All-Star. I think rather than try to do both at once, we can start with Scorecards, and time permitting, we could talk about All-Star, and there's been related discussions about how coupled some of these things should be. I think we can have that discussion as a result of kind of what we arrive at for the mission and vision of both of these. But if we start with Scorecards, I wanted to first just give an opportunity for people in this group to talk about what they would, what qualities they would view as useful for a mission and a vision. I think without some shared criteria for how we want to evaluate it, it would make consensus just that much tougher for everybody in the group. So I thought that we could take, just maybe 5 minutes, and if people have different ideas on what they would see as useful, feel free to raise your hands. And then I'm not sure if we have a designated note taker, but maybe we could get a volunteer to start recording in the meeting notes doc. And actually, before we go further, if I could get a volunteer right now, that would be great.
Stephen has his hand up.
I'm not sure if Stephen
as a comment, not as a.
Okay.
And actually, I might.
Do you want Brian? Do you want to present and I'll do the notes?
We could do that. I'm not sure if Azim is on the call, if he's still able to be a note taker. I know at some point he said he might be able to, and I'm not sure if that was a future session or for this one.
I think he might be out. Let's see. I think someone said they were going to be out. Oh, Naveen said he was going to be out. Okay.
Hey, folks, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can be the note taker.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want the notes in the GitHub issue directly, or do you want this?
Why don't we start in the Google Doc?
Let's do it in the doc and massage. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I think we can get to the part about actually discussing the content of these drafts, but if we start with the criteria for a mission and a vision first, maybe Jeff, if you want to just project the notes while we have this discussion. Feel free to put a hand up. Just to start off, like I would say, for me, having a mission that helps us prioritize decisions, like if we're reading a statement and not feeling like we can derive from that, I would say that's a criteria for me. And I would also say, from a vision standpoint, giving a clear sense of what a successful future looks like is something that I would be looking for. So I'm going to pass off Stephen, since you've got a hand up.
Yeah, so I was going to suggest that I think alignment, and see this all over the place with working groups and their sub-projects or projects or whatever they may be defined as in the respective community. But lack of necessary alignment between the owning group and the project itself, right? So I think it would be valuable if we worked backwards. So Scorecard is a project of the best practices working group, right? So what I'm going to do is just dump the best practices part of the README into the notes, and it's going to be messy for now, but that includes a vision, right? That includes Scorecard, right? And then are we also aligning to what we've already stated on our READMEs and various documentation, right? And then, you know, maybe we massage it from there, right?
Great. I don't see any other hands up at the moment. So I think maybe Stephen, if you want to just call attention to some of what you're putting in there, as what you like the vision as it stands right now.
I broke out of the bullets just because I knew it was going to be messier. So the vision for the best practices working group is to make it easy for developers to adopt best practices, thanks to identifying good practices, requirements, so on and so forth, helping maintainers to learn, and these are bolded, identifying, learn, and providing tools to help developers adopt, right? So Scorecard falls into the adoption criteria, and then further in that README, you can see. Let me scroll down. So for Scorecard, what it mentions is purpose: adopt, automate analysis and trust decisions on the security posture of open source projects is what we've got listed today. So we should work from that. So I just pasted that into the notes as well. And I'll scrub anything that is not directly Scorecard related in a second.
Great. And you said this was from, I think I missed the source, Stephen, if you could just mention.
Yeah, sure. It's the README of the best practices working group. I'll just ref that at the top.
Oh, that's perfect. And I guess too, along with the kind of example that we have here, I wasn't sure, Stephen, if just given your work with some of the other groups, if they're like kind of what some of your underlying criteria would be, to assess this is a good vision versus not, this is a good mission versus not.
Yeah, I mean, I really start with I often start with the maintainers and really understand, to try to better understand what they're trying to achieve with the project, right? So, I mean, part of the reason I started contributing here was that this is a useful tool to me, right? As a maintainer of like multiple GitHub orgs, it's good to know, like anything that you can manage to automate away, right? Or provide some sort of programmatic analysis too is a little better off than having to kind of hammer away at it manually, right? So being able to run a tool like say Scorecard or Scorecard Action across multiple repos, and get some sane data out of that, without having to do the guesswork that you often do, right? After a while, you build up this context with your individual projects, and you go, well, I know Kubernetes release, for example, is going to be, that's the place where I put all the release engineering tooling, and I know that that's the most important one for me, so it's going to be the best maintained, and then all of the other sub projects that we maintain may kind of fall below that bar, right? So being able to run something like Scorecard and immediately get ideas of like, hey, we need an automated process for enabling branch protection, or the folks who are doing, or we noticed this repo does not have we're not doing reviews. Our reviews aren't required for this repo, right? So for Kubernetes, for example, a lot of these things that we would get out of a scorecard report are already enforced, right? But for a more casual maintainer, not being able to leverage, stand on the shoulders of giants and kind of leverage, best practices from people who are doing the work in the industry is really, really valuable.
That makes sense.
And that was a big old ramble. I'm happy to dig into other places.
I agree with you, Stephen. This is Krob. And the nomenclature we have, identify, learn, and adopt. I posted a link. We have a beautiful diagram that kind of shows how the projects within the group are structured. And the scorecard piece we thought was really great underneath the identify. That not work? That makes me sad. There it is. Took me hundreds of hours to draw that.
Do we have something that extends even further out from? I think I'd be curious to, and this is kind of like this is not a here question necessarily, but like OpenSSF wide, is there a map like this for projects and working groups?
I have an unsanctioned one that I've been trying to get the TAC to devote a little time to do a reference architecture for the whole foundation. So yeah, I would love to have that to be able to show the relationships and hyperlink between the different efforts and kind of show where the synergies are. Let me see if I can find that other diagram just to kind of give you a straw man idea of it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because I think that also is that's kind of like a point to build contribution ladders around, motivate contributors to know where to go.
Agreed.
One thing I noticed is that we do have a lot of best practices kind of being researched and developed solely within the Scorecards project. It's not a singular flow of like best practices that are identified from the working group. I don't know if that should be part of the vision or the goal here, but maybe something to call out that I think we do. Anytime we find something that we think could be automatable, maybe it's a best practice that's known, and we just haven't really thought about how we can automate it yet. But anytime we find something like that, we do the research and try to get it in as a check.
And Godofredo, saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wanted to say that as a user of a scorecards, the main benefit that we have been getting out of it is to identify the current state of the repository security posture. So it has been helping us to identify so many different things that we didn't know about, and it has been saving a lot of time for us rather than just trying to identify different things by looking at the different parts of the source code. Just running a scorecards give us a better view of all the different things where we are failing to provide enough security, and then fixing those and identifying new ones.
Nusrat?
I will add one short thing along with all those lines. I think I see scorecards also applicable for users' perspective who doesn't know security or who don't develop software. They can, since scorecard is automatic, they can run it and they can get an idea about its project security posture. And when I was looking into different security frameworks proposed by different organizations, you will see that there are hundreds of best practice or security practice, and they are just telling us this is what you should do, but very little we know about how we should do or how can we automate it. And that's where I think Scorecards added a good value there. Even if you are not from a security background, you can get an idea.
So I think that's the point. And I was also just going to say, I think we're starting to get into more what we would like to see content-wise, in kind of the scorecard mission and vision. And I think as we're going along, I think we've gotten a good set of kind of the previous work on the table. So I think this is a good time to start going into that. And I think what was just said is a great kind of piece of content to be considered. And unless anyone else has any other kind of just general criteria, maybe we can shift gears a little bit into more of that content piece. I'm actually going to copy and paste over what I started out as a draft example from the GitHub issue as something that, I think we could start incorporating pieces that you might see as missing, or see if it covers what's already there.
Would it make sense for us to break out into another document just to keep the meeting notes clean?
I think it could, or we could keep it
Yeah.
here and then copy and paste it at the end.
Okay.
Just so we're, I agree. We don't want to this big chunk of meeting notes right there.
I have few points. I am working with IBM, and I'm part of compliance team, audit team. So we have different business unit, and they have different way of doing their auditing and doing the compliance thing, checking the code is worked as per standard or not. So they have their different measurement of looking for their reports and code and everything. And this is where I see in the scorecard is a centralized location where I can see this numbers given to the all what we are working on, and what this number is given to the score numbers is given to the each project in it, and it gives the centralized report. Okay, this is what we have to follow the standard way to work on.
So this also sounds, I would say that sounds like a goal. That's not something that we necessarily do today, right? So that's actually great as as something that we want to steer towards, right? The aggregate of all of these results is not something that we actively present. These are kind of ad hoc processes, right?
Yeah, so but yeah, it helps. We are running some of internally in IBM, and putting some score points for each what we are open source project we are using, and it's really nice picture how it is helpful for us, because each team has a different way of doing their vulnerability checks for audit and other stuff, and this also helps in it for us. It's really good for us.
Do you have a and in the interest of not veering too far off the working session, if you are willing to share some of that criteria, I think it'd be interesting to have a use case to build around too.
Okay,
potential contributions. Yeah.
So I'll collect the details, and I'll definitely post and so that we can work on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, I had an attempt at a draft. I was wondering if I could paste it in the begin working area section for mission and vision. So here goes. This highlighted section. Vision, provide visibility of security posture of open source projects. Mission, build a tool that unifies the measurement of security posture for open source projects. And for me, vision is why we do what we do, and mission is what we're doing to make that vision a reality. And the strategy is kind of like how we get there. which wasn't requested to provide, but I just thought it might be nice as an additional afterthought. But yeah, I didn't really want to post that in the GitHub issue. I didn't know if that's where we should post drafts or where drafts could be posted, or so here it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to put it here. Everyone is always welcome though to post within the GitHub issue there too, just to keep any offline discussion over there. But thank you for sharing. So I think there's a lot of different ways to say kind of the main piece of what we want scorecards to start being and already has been becoming. I guess we've got a couple of graphs there. Like, are there aspects that people like or think we should be incorporating? Are there things that don't make sense? If you've got another kind of alternate draft, I think it'd be a good time to pop that into. But I think looking for things that work and looking for things that don't. And I think when people call it out, just explaining kind of what aspect of it feels like it's not helping us either see something more clearly or have more of a clear purpose. I think that would be great in the feedback.
So let's actually ask, do we agree with what's listed today? Right? So the purpose being automate analysis and trust decisions on the security posture of open source projects. Do we agree with that as it's stated?
Do we want to try using the Zoom voting? Like,
where is that stated?
Check yes or no.
It's stated within the working group, the best practices working group README. I listed that at the bottom under help build a community.
Do you have anywhere defined on what you mean by security posture?
I realize it was not an answer.
Well, and that's at least with the initial proposal that the team had posted, where you're talking about the secure development. At least that puts a little bit of a qualifier on it. I don't know what all the checks are that Scorecard goes out and looks at, but if it's primarily around software development practices, perhaps you could adjust that, but you're going to want to probably define what you mean by security posture.
I think, I think some of this goes to, it's a bit all over the map, right? There are various components. Some are looking at, some are looking at the presentation mechanisms, right? So if you look at something like CII best practices or other OpenSSF best practices badge, right? Then there are components that are specific to, I guess, the human interaction, community health. So again, I think OpenSSF best practices badge falls into that, as well as like, do you have a security policy defined, right? There's mention of, or there are checks for how we are processing things within the pre-submit environment, right? So are we, are we doing code reviews? Are we doing, are we looking at, the part of the pipeline before code is merged? There's after code is merged, there is the code resting in the repository. I think like there are a lot of different vectors that, I do agree that it would be useful to try to distill that into various targets, right? Like, are we, I think, if you think of like chaos's working group risk, right? They have some definitions there too. So a few things that they mention are business risk, code quality, licensing, security, transparency, dependency risk assessment. And I think, again, there's some overlap and there's maybe some, having the right definitions is important. I'll stop there. I agree. But Azim and Jeff have their hands up.
I'll just go. Just wanted to drop an opinion on the security posture thing. This is something I saw on some other tools also. I think other tools use this term called security hygiene, which is basically just like what Stephen was saying. I think we are trying to measure everything from like not just static code analysis, but also like what kind of code review process does this follow, right? Like what kind of best practices does this project follow? I don't have a clear definition, but I guess that's what we are trying to like imply here when we say security posture.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, Krove, is that why have a term that can be misinterpreted? And I like
Correct.
what you proposed there. So I would say security posture is adherence to known security best practices, and so why not just say that? I think that makes sense. Secure development and management practices. I like that.
I like the action nature of what John had added, opposed to just assessing. Because if you say assess, then you have to provide methodology.
Yeah, I think there's some. With just assess, there's some unsaid part that the project is building a tool. So yeah, that's a good point. Like, do we need to say that in the mission or the vision that there is a tool that you run, or is it just assumed that this project is producing a code base?
Well, I feel like there's more than just a code base, right? Like you want user adoption. So it's not just about contributing code, you're also cultivating a community that uses the product, you know? So there's like a product, it's implemented in code, but the intention is for it to be useful outside of the confines of its own little binary or, you know, source code platform. So yeah, that's why I thought.
So I think, yeah, so I think we're speaking to, I mean, if looking at the checks, I'll just read them out really quickly for people who don't have it at hand. Binary artifacts, branch protection, CI tests, CII best practices, code review, contributors, dependency update tool, fuzzing, maintained, packaging, pin dependencies, static analysis tools, security policy, signed releases, token permissions, and vulnerabilities. So much of what the current checks are, we're looking at security from the lens of community health, not, it's like, if we can, there's so many things that here that say like, is your project maintained? Should I even risk ingesting it? Right. And like a lot of these are, you know, are the contributors from diverse companies or, you know, affiliations, right? Have you done the due diligence to fill out something that would allow you to be badged, right? Are you protecting those assets before they get merged into the main line, right? So many of these things are about community health, right? So are the words that are on the paper right now reflective of that?
What do you
Hands
think?
up. Which words are you talking about specifically, Stephen?
Oh, there's so many words. I'm trying to keep up, but I think that, you know, we were asking the question, what does security mean in this context, right? And it's allowing the code to speak for itself, right? It's saying a lot about community health, first and foremost.
So something that's standing out to me is that it seems like we've got kind of similar statements, you know, both from the common working group whose vision I think is a little bit broader, but we could, you know, also derive similar things for us from that. We've got a couple of drafts that, you know, are both citing security posture, which seems like, you know, can mean different things. I'm wondering if like the way that, or I'm wondering what people think about a vision and a mission for scorecards that is going to roll up to more of that common purpose, but it's going to have just a little bit more specificity about scorecards itself. Like maybe instead of using the term security posture, we take within that things that are more specific to scorecards as a way to basically say, you know, we're united in this bigger vision, but as it applies to scorecards, there's a few more specifics here that we could use. But like in my mind, that's one way of structuring it, that we could have kind of the common piece that, you know, just looking at it does look like we could be working within that, but taking it one level more specific, and you know, kind of cross-linking back to it to say, you know, it's highly related to this. Just wanted to see what people thought of that approach.
Yeah, I think that aligns with what I had in mind as well.
I think from that standpoint, then too, if we were to put a few more specifics around, like what aspects of security posture are we talking about? You know, and we plug that into one of these drafts, like I'm wondering if that might be sufficient to get us to a little bit more of a specific place. And then if, you know, we could then get into kind of the surrounding language. But to me, it seems like that's one of the key points to agree on.
Yeah, I think we also started with something we haven't really dug into, which are the user personas, right? We heard from developers of Scorecards. We heard from maintainers of Scorecard. We heard from users of Scorecard, right? I think building around what each of those personas is trying to achieve makes a lot of sense too, right? And it can also inform the maintainers on how to proceed. Like we have lots of discussions around, should we include this check? What should it look like, right? And there's not really a framework to process that, right? But being able to have that, you know, like, does this align with our mission statement, right? And making sure that the mission statement is incorporating the viewpoints of that developer, that contributor, that, you know, maintainer, that user.
So I want to just see, Stephen, if I was understanding correctly, I think I was hearing a kind of a suggestion or almost a motion to kind of spend some time focusing first on defining those personas such that we can then revisit like a mission and a vision statement with a little bit more of a way to measure if these are meeting all the goals of those individual personas. So basically, you know, kind of table mission and vision for a little bit and spend some time, whether that's with time remaining or, you know, kind of a separate GitHub offline discussion around what all of those personas are.
Yeah, I think that would be useful, and it will go to inform even ahead of crystallizing mission and vision, the decisions that we make as maintainers, right? Like how to, you know, I think what happens with with fledgling projects, not saying that is what this is right now, is that you have a you have a core group of maintainers, you're writing some code, you get it done, you ship it, and you're like, cool, all right, we wrote some stuff, and eventually, and we're kind of moving into the eventually, where the decisions that we make are going to reverberate for a while, right? So deciding to merge this piece of code, knowing that maybe it doesn't align to something, right? We haven't defined what that something is. Jeff.
Yeah, I think I agree, kind of, I think with the mission, it's build something, write some code, build it, and ship it. I think the vision is where we definitely should capture not just like that we envision that this perfect tool exists, but also like that how people will use it and in what ways. So, not just that it's accessible and understandable, but that, I guess understandable kind of implies that a user could use it and get benefit from it. But, a little bit more on, what the state of the world is and how we intend those different personas to interact with what we do in the vision. I agree.
So I'll give an example, and I'll try to do the story style. As a as a leader in an open source program office, I would love to have a tool to automate some of the process and procedure in assessing the posture and the safety of releasing open source software. Right. If this is something I could eventually roll into my pipeline at Cisco and say, run scorecard, like before you even file this request to open source a project, you run scorecard on it and you tell me what you get. And if it is under this, then go do this. Go look at the remediation steps, and then we'll come back and have a conversation. Being able to bring a tool into the process for the sake of compliance, it would be huge to me.
So with just about 10 minutes left, I'm thinking just in terms of where we go from here. I'm gonna put out an idea, and if unless there's concern, I think we could go with it, which is let's start a related issue around different personas on as a GitHub issue related to this. I think let's get some of those on paper. I think it's worth having an additional discussion around that at a future meeting. And from there, I think that gets back to what I was originally kind of hoping to get, which is, criteria to assess if we're on the right track with the mission and the vision. So I think all of these make sense. But yeah, I guess my proposal would be that we can start a new GitHub issue specifically around creating personas for scorecards, and then making that known to the group, both whoever's here and on Slack, to add different cases that they might have in mind. And then at a future meeting, let's go through some of those cases, and whatever we can't cover offline, we'll do it in a meeting.
Brian, just to clarify, is there follow-up action items? I think I see we have two action items. One is, like you said, the whole personas thing. Like, I guess we want to list out the different personas, figure out who we want to prioritize, or like who are our primary personas that we want to target. And I guess the other action item is this thing around which you mentioned, like have specific wordings or specifics, mission vision, which is like scorecard specific, but also figure out how it rolls up to the best practices working group mission vision. Are these the two action items we have?
I think that summarizes it, unless anyone has something that was missed.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest on the persona issue, you know, not just like distilling it to prioritize personas, but like let's list every possible user story and try to list it in, and try to define the persona by the user story that Stephen mentioned, where it's like, as a, I will want to do this for this. And I think because a lot of people have different ideas on like what a consumer versus a user means. But I think if we have every suggestion as the user story, then it makes it clear. And then with the vision, then we can try to come up with a short vision that will cover all the exact stories. And I think just interpolating for All-Star here, I think we'll have the same discussion on the what is a poster, so we can have just a single discussion there. But for the user stories, that'll be completely different. So I can have a similar issue for All-Star to put user stories there as well, in personas.
And I, in addition, I want to make sure that we're not doing this in isolation, right? I think that, given we kind of have this co-community call between the projects, where we've already identified that we need to establish definitions for common terms, right? That suggests that it is working group level, cross working group level, TAC level. Right, so let's make sure that as we kind of move down the line with this, that we're also bubbling this up to higher bodies.
I think that makes sense. With regard to kicking off the personas issue, I do think having a format for how these issues should be written would be really helpful, just so that we can compare them quickly. I was going to ask Stephen if he would volunteer to kick
For sure.
off one of the examples.
Just about to volunteer.
Right. Well, I think at this point, I think we've got clear next steps, and thanks to Seam for putting those down. Unless there's any parting pieces on the mission and vision, I think if there were any other topics, I'll hand it back to Jeff.
Yeah, we did want to reserve the whole meeting for this, but with a few minutes left, we do have one topic out of a Godofred. I think hopefully we can target that. Godofred, are you on? Do you want to discuss this?
Yeah, so I do have a few questions about the vulnerability scanning check on the scorecards. I'm not sure if it is actually scanning like PyPy files or any other files from different and then grabbing the vulnerabilities from there, or is it something like just the commit from the repository where it is running on?
Yeah, it's the second one. We basically look at the commit on which you want to find the vulnerability, and then we look up the OSV database and see if this commit had a reported vulnerability, like whether it's open or closed, and that's what we report back.
I see. Are there any plans on integrating this with something like third-party dependencies for C++ or something like that?
Third-party dependency, you mean like transitive dependencies for the project?
Yes.
We are exploring it, but we don't have a clear picture as to where this should fit well, whether it should be a scorecard check, whether it should be like an all-star policy. We are exploring how to kind of have transitive dependencies, but we don't have a clear picture of when it will be delivered, or rather like where it will fit in.
This is a great. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a great example of like, if you ask a maintainer a question, what is the, like, can we point to here's what we were trying to do with that, right? So I think, I'd mentioned on a previous call that there are certain things that we shouldn't try to build or over rotate on. And I think one of them is presenting vulnerability information from, instead of instead of populating that from. I think it's fine for us to present the information. I think it is not fine for us to try to create it ourselves, right? Whatever feeds are available or what we should be populating from.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Awesome, thanks for that. Parth, did you want to discuss something? We have a minute or two.
Like before I begin that, like I want to ensure that I do not eat into the mission and mission meeting time. So if
No, we're
no,
done. Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
For this particular thing, it's related to our research case study, in which our goal is to get the scorecard scores for almost all of the existing packages that are there in the npm and GitHub repository. So corresponding to each packages, we ourselves have mapped the GitHub repositories. And in order for your cron scheduler job to pick up those repositories for further scanning, we found out that there were a list of GitHub repositories that needs to be added to the existing set. So I raised a PR yesterday, and which included the additional GitHub repositories that we found that we believe that would whose scorecard scores would be important to a lot of people. In that PR, I was actually requesting like what additionally I need to do from my end, because I ensure that I did follow the documentation. However, it seems like there needs to be a command run in order to uh, achieve the goal of merging that PR successfully. But I am failing in that issue. Like I am failing in running that command successfully. And if I get that command run successfully, then I think you guys can merge that PR successfully, so it gets picked up in your cron scheduler tool.
Yeah.
Hey, Parth, let's take that to Slack. Yeah, I think it'll be better to have the discussion over there between Slack and the GitHub issue.
Yeah, I can give you a very quick overview of what's happening there. So the command that I'm asking you to run, which is the make add projects, is a validation command. So if you're failing it, that's because the URLs are not properly formatted. So the idea is either you delete those URLs or like fix them so that the command passes. So it's basically our validation to get it working. But yeah, we can take it on Slack if you're having issues there.
Okay, sure.
Cool. All right, so we're right at the end, and for facilitator rotation, I see we have Naveen sign up for next week. Hopefully he'll be here. So we're good to go. Thanks everyone for attending. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Later.
See you folks.
Yeah.